Today, I'll bring you a very special guided message, a sacred preparation where everything begins to change for you. So if you're watching this, then know that there is something very powerful that is beginning in your life, a very powerful rebirth, an alchemical one, if you will, where you start to alchemize the pain and frustration into something meaningful and beautiful as a way to reclaim your power. And when I say power, I'm talking about the power, the kind that liberates you, where you're able to reclaim parts of you that have been buried beneath inherited beliefs, beneath survival responses, and beneath expectations. And just know that all of that you've been through, the chaos, the destruction, the emotional turmoil, those unseen battles, were a sacred preparation, shaping you into the soul version that you could finally step into. And these sudden shifts are tied to the powerful celestial event Pluto Retrograde, which kicked off on the 4th of May and will last for about 6 months and finish around about October the 13th or the 14th, depending on where you are. But I want you to know that this isn't just some surface level astrology, it's deep soul work. It's a shadow before the rebirth, and it's a sign that something deep is shifting within you, like a personal invitation. And here it's almost like Pluto Retrograde reprograms itself, in the sense that it metaphorically takes a step back, so the version of you that's trying to arrive, it can be burst through all of this. Because the age of Aquarius is arriving and Pluto is making sure that the door stays open. Why? Because it's an initiation at core, and it's going to powerfully, in massive shocking ways, reveal what was never truly you to begin with. And some of us will experience this in big, massive, shocking ways. And perhaps you already are. Let me know in the comments down below. But know that this is a chance of karmic release, of letting go of past energies as we walk through this karmic portal. And when I tuned in and asked, what do people need to know right now? This is what followed. To become more aware of themselves, because it is through this portal of seeing themselves, the truth, all aspects, hidden and visible, that you will grow and blossom in ways that you can't even imagine yet. And all of this will set the stage of what's to come in October and beyond. And on a deeper level, it means coming face to face with all those things that you perhaps weren't even aware of. As this alchemical energy will, without hesitation, bring back things that have been buried in the dark, forgotten, avoided, hidden parts in our DNA, not as a way to punish us, but to liberate us, to free us. And this is where we are right now in time. So listen carefully, because it's here, in this moment, you meet your power. Because there may have been times, particularly when you were a child or a young adult, where we handed our power over, or allowed unknowingly our power to be taken from us. So this Pluto retrograde will provide us with opportunities to revisit the past in somewhat subtle ways, but also in shocking, unexpected ways, just out the blue. A chance to reassess power dynamics, control, get into the matter of the heart, to burn away old stories and to rise back up like the phoenix reborn. And that's on a personal level, but we'll also see this playing out globally. You know, through the way the countries are communicating with each other, the way the governments and old structures may fall away. Now, in a moment, I will go through on how you can actually use this energy to your advantage, because it really can just throw us off, catch us off guard, and just be suddenly shocking and surprising out the blue. And it can either make us consciously aware of what's going on, or unconsciously cause us to descend the other way. Along with that, we'll also be sharing with you some journal prompts that can help guide you through this process. But before I do that, I just wanted to share with you an example of what it's like to meet your power and transformation, because power dynamics is one of the underlying themes of this energy. On the 4th of May, just before I went to bed, I decided to go and catch up on a few things. And as I sat there in my chair at my desk, I was going through some emails and I came across an article titled Core Wounds. And I was like, that looks interesting. Let me see what that's about. Maybe I'll even learn something. I clicked it open, and just underneath the title, there was a trigger warning. And it mentioned that in this article, there will be deep-seated core wounds that will be mentioned in this article. And I was like, okay, I'm fine, let's see what this is about. As I continued to read on, it talked about a wound where, as a child, you may have been treated like an object or an it by those who raised you. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's intense. But when I read the words again, they hit me with a visceral jolt, leaping off the page like a sudden ambush. Their randomness, yet undeniable truth struck a deep, raw chord. And it brought in a rush of shock and recognition, taking me back to a memory in time and space where as a child, by this extended family member, I was treated like an object, like an it, in their game, like a pawn and nothing else. And I was like, well, okay. Suddenly, all this heaviness just felt too much. I was like, this is intense. Where has this come from? Why now? And I didn't know it at the time, but this was a formidable force of energy of this Pluto retrograde, because when this happens, it undoubtedly brings up, it takes you back and brings up parts of you in shocking and unexpected ways. As I sat with it, trying to comprehend what's just happened, the shocking memory of that childhood that's just popped up, and as I then tried to feel through it, trying to make sense of it, it just felt too much. So I grabbed a pen and paper and just started writing everything down. How I thought, how I felt, the anger, the pain, the loneliness. How somebody should have been there trying to protect and save me from this person. But the more I continued down that road, it just became too much. And I was like, you know what? I just haven't got time to deal with it right now. I just want all of this to just go away. So I put everything down and I just went to bed. But to my surprise, as I lay there in bed, I was suddenly called, almost dragged into a meditative state. It happened so quick and so instantly that I was teleported back into the old house, in that living room, standing there observing my child self facing me and looking at me, and the other person standing there in that doorway to the kitchen and the living room. And I was like, why am I here? The energy of it just felt too dense and too heavy, and I just wanted to escape. But then a nudge, a voice, reminding me that my soul has a chance to break free finally by energetically cutting those cords, because that was the only way that I was going to be able to let go of this kind of particular energy. And I was like, okay, I've done it for my clients. Why not for myself? I can heal other people. I'm going to heal this part of myself as well. I could see myself standing there, my inner child of myself. And out of my back, I could see this energetical cord going all the way to that other person who was standing there in that doorway. I stood there facing my inner child self, and I was like, I'm sorry, I just can't do this. It's just too heavy. It's just too emotional. I'm scared and I'm terrified. And then, to my surprise, a spark. I connected with my higher self, telling me that no, you're not that same little girl. You are totally different. You can do this. You've got different confidence. You've got courage. You've got bravery. Look how far you've come in life. You've grown and evolved so much. You can do this. And then in a gentle, loving, caring way, as I made that cut and dissolved that energetical cord away, my body that was lying in bed at that time, it felt a sudden jolt. I suddenly felt dizzy and lightheaded. And at one point I felt like I was going to vomit. And this is okay. This happens because you're going back to a particular timeline in space and time. And you are releasing those emotional and energetical attachments. And this is normal. You know, sometimes symptoms can last a bit longer. For me, they did. They carried on the next day, where I felt lightheaded and dizzy, where I felt like stuff was just going on in my stomach that I just couldn't make sense of. And then I vomited. And then after that, I was fine. And this lasted for about a week. But when you do this, and I want to reassure you that when you go back to cut those energetical cords, and if you do try to do this, I want you to do this in a loving and gentle way. Not with anger. Understanding that you are going back in as not the same person as you were. Because when I went back in, I also reassured that inner part of myself, that inner child of me, letting them know that, you know what, it's okay, you're safe now, go and play. Essentially what you're doing is you are going back in that time and space. You are not only healing, but you're also rebirthing that part of yourself with new light and frequency. And the way you do that is, for example, how I did it when I went back in time and said, don't worry, you are okay, you are safe. So I'm putting new beliefs into that inner part of myself. And then saying, go and play. You don't need to be here stuck, being treated like an object by that other person. You know, go play, be creative, have fun, because that's what children are supposed to do. And with the other person, as that cord dropped and dissolved, I was like, it's okay. You only did what you came here to do. That was part of your soul contract, part of your soul journey. And then I let it go. Now, I'm not saying that your experience is going to be exactly like that, but I wanted to give you an example of what it could be like in terms of the intensity of when something deep buried in the forgotten, in the darkness, comes back up. And in particularly, if it's got to do with power dynamics and control, where we've handed our power over. Now, I'm not saying that it will be exactly like this, but if you do, or if it's something that's deep within you, buried within your subconscious mind, that comes up and you get a chance to revisit it, then I want you to look at it through the eyes and through the lenses of who you are. Because when you go back and you look at it at the same level of mind, emotions, thoughts and feelings of the past, it becomes difficult to find or see a way out of it. Because now as a person, I'm vibrating at a different vibrational frequency, and more connected deeply in a totally different way with my higher self. And the reason why this can often happen with yourself personally, because you are intimately connected with that part of you, which is why it can be difficult to go back and look at it from having that higher perspective, so that you can heal and rebirth that part of you with new light and frequency. And I just want to add that it's very important and very essential that you call in your higher self or your spirit guides or your angels, or tap into source divine energy, whatever you feel like when you go and do something like this, because they will be able to help show and guide you what you need to see. Even if you can't see the whole big picture, your higher self will know exactly what you need to hear, what you need to see, what you need to do in order to break free from those past wounds, those energetical wounds that you need to release and let go of. In the same way, even though I didn't know it at the time that this was all about Pluto retrograde energy, because this happened to me literally on the evening of the 4th of May, but my higher self knew that this was a perfect time. It was ripe and ready for me to go and release and cut energetical cords with that person, finally, and let go of it, to prepare for what's to come. Your soul asks, what part of you have you actually outgrown? Take a look and observe that. Because death of the false self always feels like a loss at first, until you meet who you really are. And in terms of power, it isn't something that you take back. It is through shifts and cycles and energies like this that you realize was always yours. So descend consciously into this transformative portal, because it's here to pull you into evolution. And just know that all of this, all of what you've been through in life, was part of your soul mission here. Even the hard parts, they were weaved and written into your contract. So accept all of it. Once you are able to accept all of it, you are able to move forward in trust and surrender. Now here's how to use this energy to your advantage. Understanding not only what it can bring up, but also how it can transform your life. And I want you to stick with me here, because I'm going to break it down into stages. First and foremost, assess your life since October 2024. What changes have you made, and how do these changes need to be tweaked or adjusted? Confront what you're afraid of, knowing that it no longer has hold or power over you. Honor any desires for quiet reflection, contemplation. Step forward. Assess what beliefs, situations, or relationships may be causing you to feel powerless. Observe your triggers. What makes you feel powerless or reactive? This is your doorway to healing. Slow down transformation. Not every breakthrough needs to be loud. Pluto teaches through subtle and ongoing pressure. It's a long 6-month portal. It's subtle, but powerfully unraveling. Small events that ripple into major inner growth. Empower your future vision. Yes, it is about death and endings of the old, but it also brings about futuristic energy. So it's a time to refine your long-term goals, aligned with truth and collective service. Declutter your internal mind, finding ways to release mental patterns, emotional baggage, control, or beliefs rooted in fear. Secondly, you might also experience downloads about your spiritual purpose, or rediscovering parts of you that were buried in order to survive. or channeling ancient wisdom and healing, as well as cutting energetical cords and outdated attachments. Because remember, the path to self-discovery isn't all about comfort. It's almost always paved with meaningful challenges. But just know that your true essence, your higher self, will always be there helping you along the way. And lastly, some questions, journal prompts that can help guide you through this process. So this is all about becoming aware. Become aware of what you're perhaps too afraid to address, feel, or let go of, and why you are clinging to it. What am I clinging to control instead of trusting the process? What truth about myself am I finally ready to get honest about and free? Where do I feel disempowered, and what would reclaiming my power look like? What shadow parts of me am I ready to integrate instead of hiding them? If I trusted my inner power fully, what would I do next? This is your sacred return to the self, and tied with it is a planet of power that is linked to deep subconscious change that reaches beyond the surface. And when it takes a step back, it's like a personal invitation calling for you to face your fears, to dig that deeper, to reassess your mindset, your beliefs, your relationships, and particularly those connected to control, power, and personal growth. It's a soul-stirring energy, and it will bring up anything that's been buried, repressed, or overlooked. So I want you to really take your time, which I know you will, because sometimes things will pop up suddenly, unexpected, shocking. Sometimes things will be subtle and calm, and that's okay. But I want you to really take your time in being gentle with yourself, nurturing your soul, grounding your energy, tapping into your spiritual tools, and calling in and inviting in your higher self to help and guide you and show you the way. Trusting the process, surrendering into the unknown. Share this with somebody who you feel like is going through something like this and really needs to hear this message, because this will help clear up some things, and perhaps those journal prompts and those questions can help guide them through this, can also spark something else within them that will keep them going and help them do that deep dive and release anything else that is no longer in alignment with what is trying to be burst through them. And I will see you soon. Take care. Much love. Namaste.